We have big news. We have exciting news for you. Tell them what it is, Serena.
We are super excited to announce that we are starting our first membership this January 2024.
Yay! Membership.
So we're excited to let you know that we will be hosting a monthly membership where when you join, you will be
with us live in a Zoom room once a month for a workshop like we just hosted. It's going to be a workshop like that, one topic each month, a different topic. You might even help us come up with the following month's topic from inside our membership. Super excited to meet you. It was so fun meeting a few of you in our inaugural workshop. So we're really looking forward to that.
And when you are a member, you will also be receiving a monthly newsletter where I'm going to be a little more intimate and I'll be sharing the things that are working and the things that aren't working for me.
Yeah, like taking a tool that you've learned from the podcast and how you're implementing it and how well that worked, or maybe if it didn't work. And then Amma can put in my 2 bits worth. We'll see how that goes. But a membership newsletter and a membership live Zoom room workshop starting in January 2024. Can sign up through our Patreon link in the show notes, yeah?
Yes, everything will be in the show notes, and we can't wait to see you there, listeners.
We can't wait. Yay!
Welcome, parents, and happy Halloween. Today is October 31st, and here in the US, we celebrate Halloween. Honestly, I don't know where else Halloween is celebrated, but it's Halloween. My little girls are dressing up as Princess Peach because that's who Andrea wants to be. So I'm tired of making Aniston, her little sister, whatever little creature compliments Andrea's outfit. So she's gonna be a Princess Peach as well, since she loves being a princess. And so we will go trick-or-treating tonight. But before we dive into all that candy, and there's a lot of candy, even before Halloween, after Halloween, with all the celebrations and the parties, we just wanted to get into a conversation on how scary sugar really is. So before we let our kids overindulge, and not just today, but if it's an everyday thing, we just wanted you to be aware of the scary truth about sugar that most of us don't know. So let's dive into this week's conversation.
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of 2 little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly questioned myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family.
So I raised my daughter without introducing sugar in the first least couple years of her life, maybe a little longer. And I think she was 3 or 4, and we were invited to a big Easter egg hunt at some friend's house. They had, a whole bunch of people come, like dozens of children running around their beautiful property searching for Easter eggs. And the host had just got back in the day, this is in the 80s, you guys, 1980s. He had just got his first video camera. And so he was going around making these little video clips of children and asking them, what are your favorite foods? And he came up to me and he said, I'm so impressed. I interviewed your daughter like I've been interviewing all the kids around today. And when I asked her what her favorite foods are, she said, tofu and broccoli. I think that was it. And watermelon. Maybe there was one fruit in there. And he was like, all the other kids were like candy or pizza or, some kind of not so healthy food. And that really was actually my daughter's favorite meal was this tofu, the way that I make it, and steamed broccoli. And he was so impressed. And I was like, oh, okay, is this not normal?
I'm happy that he was impressed, because some people might think like, okay, that's weird. Like, poor little girl, she doesn't get to experience sweets. And even my aunt, my nephew or my cousin, he's 5 years old now, but when he was younger, she would not let him, he couldn't have cereal. He couldn't have like any of these things with artificial sweeteners in it. And I was like, it's not that serious. Like, let him get a taste. Let him try it. Like, he doesn't have to have it all the time, but he can have it once in a blue moon. And he was five. I mean, he's 5 now, so he was probably 1 and 2 back then. And I was like, what's the problem with him just having a sweet once in a blue moon? It's really not that serious.
People think we're depriving our children.
Yes.
When we make that choice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I mean, with my first daughter, I like to believe I have sophisticated taste buds. I like to eat octopus and I like different meals. And so I always said I didn't want my kids to be those chicken tender French fry eaters. I wanted them to come out to eat with me and eat what I was eating without making faces or being like, ew, what is that? And so with my first one, it was easier because we were living by ourselves, and I would give her, healthy, savory, hearty meals. And then when my second one came around, and my first one, she would try a little ice cream here and there, but I don't really like sweets, so it was never really kept in the house. But with my second one coming into the picture, her sister was a little older, so maybe she might have a candy in her hand, and maybe she even let her sister try it. And just the other people in my household love rewarding with sweets, and it drives me insane. So with my second, she got a taste of a lollipop before she was 1, and she is such a sugar baby. My first, she will want it because she sees sweets as a reward. So she just wants really to be rewarded, but she doesn't go crazy for the sweets. She takes a little bit and then she's done. The second one was definitely tainted by the sugar, and she is a sugar baby. She sees a lollipop. You can't tell her no, you can't. No, she has to have that lollipop. Wow. It's insane how crazy she goes to get that lollipop in her mouth. So I have a picture of her double fisting lollipops.
Oh, okay. 2 things I want to say there. One, for anybody who's a new listener, Serena is now living in an extended family household. So she and her husband are not the only ones who are feeding their children. So you lose some control there as to what your choices are, especially because some of the people are actually doing some childcare for you during the day with that younger one. And the other thing I want to say is it's very normal for the second and subsequent children to be exposed to things earlier in life. Because when it's our first child, the only child, we can have a bubble around them in whatever area we want, like no screen time, no sugars, that kind of thing. And with the second one, yes, your first one is older. They might be having some more sweets. They might be having some more screen time. It's a lot harder to keep that second one in that sort of more protective bubble, especially if you're out in the world more. If you're living in a rural situation or around other families who make the same choices as you, then that's different. But yeah, so it's doesn't surprise me, and I'm sorry that that's happening for your youngest.
Yeah, she's definitely an addict already.
So, on the topic of sugar, I wanted to start off by saying that when we're introducing our infants to their first foods, so they're 6 months old, you want to introduce them to some food. When we introduce them to savory foods, you're going to try one food at a time. Generally, that's what we used to do. I know people are a little more lax about how they introduce foods these days, but to make sure that there aren't allergic reactions, it's good to introduce one food at a time. The studies have shown that it takes 13 times of introducing one food for a young palate, a child's, taste buds, to kind of accept that as a food that they like and that they will eat with savory food. Guess how many times it takes to introduce a sweet food?
One.
That's right. One time. And we're going to get into why that is in a minute. But I want to say that when a child is introduced sweets, and in particular food that has processed sugars in it, and we'll get into that in a minute, when your child is introduced to this before their second birthday, like your youngest has been, Serena, they will then, throughout their life, possibly show less interest in that diverse palate that you were hoping your children would have when they go out to the restaurant with you, or when you decide to cook, an Indian meal or some kind of new food. A child who has been given that refined sugar early in life will not be interested. And that's really sad. The first foods that we feed our babies up until they're, let's say 3 years old, even 4 years old, if you keep introducing new tastes, those first foods can impact our children for life. So take it seriously. So let's look at sugar. What is it? Sugar, the main molecule that is sugar, is called sucrose. And that's made up of two smaller molecules, glucose and fructose. Our bodies actually need sugars to work well. Sugars give us energy. But when I'm talking about sugars, I'm not necessarily talking about refined sugars. We'll get into that a little later too. But right now, our brain needs sugar. Our brain uses a lot of energy to work well. And sugar gives us energy. What happens when our children eat processed sugars? You tell me, Serena.
Yeah, running, jumping off the walls, yelling, screaming, just wild.
So that's the spike from the sugar. And then what happens?
Oh, and then a debilitating crash.
A debilitating crash. Exactly.
That's just stuck in my head from those 5-hour shot drinks. And there was a commercial that talks about why you shouldn't be drinking them. And so that's always stuck in my head, like those little sugary drinks just giving you a high, and then the debilitating crash just hits.
Debilitating crash is, and just on a side note, please don't drink those energy drinks. They're so bad for you on so many levels. Yeah. But those spikes and crashes, you parents, you all have experienced those, I'm sure. Go to a birthday party with your child They get sweets, they get cake with the icing, they get whatever, all the sweet drinks and everything else, and you get the sugar high. And then you got to come home with the crash, and it's not fun. So we're going to look at how we can avoid some of that. What's happening in our bodies that causes us to want sugar so badly? When we taste sweetness in our mouth, our sweet receptors on our tongue, like our
taste buds.
Thank you. Our taste buds, the sweet taste buds, all different taste buds are in different places around our tongue and around our inner mouth. Sweet taste buds are on the tip of our tongue. So as soon as we lick that lollipop, woohoo, the receptors send information to the brain. The sweet receptors signal the cerebral cortex part in the brain to release dopamine. Dopamine is one of our feel-good chemicals in our brain, and especially the pleasure receptor, okay? So when we get sugar as a dopamine releaser, we get a huge spike of dopamine. There are other ways to get the dopamine that we need, that pleasure, that feeling good, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, it's really important to know that what happens when we eat sugar, and again, especially the refined sugars that's in processed foods, we get a huge release of dopamine. And if we eat a lot of it, we overconsume those sweets. It overwhelms our brain. And the brain, being as clever as it is, thinks, oh, I don't have enough dopamine receptors, so places where the dopamine can sit and wait for that sugar to come in. So it creates more dopamine receptors. And that's why we need more sugar to get to the same level of feeling good. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And as you describe that, what I can relate to is just the experience of a drug addict and like them wanting to get that experience of that first high, because they're always searching for that first high that they felt, and they'll put more and more drugs into themselves to try to get to that high.
Because those dopamine receptors all need to be filled up with whatever the substance is that's giving you that sense of pleasure. They all need to be filled up in order for us to get that pleasurable feeling. And as our brain creates more and more of those, the more that we take in of whatever the drug is, including sugar, they now know that it acts like a drug in our system.
Yes. And actually, please watch this. I will put it in the show notes. I think everybody has to watch it. It's free. It's on YouTube, but it's a documentary called Fed Up. And in that documentary, they show a study where they gave lab rats sugar water and cocaine. And the lab rats, you would think that they would want the cocaine more, but they were going for the sugar water. The sugar water was 8 times more addictive than the cocaine was, which is, that's scary.
Wow. That is so scary. So hopefully that you're getting from this listener that, this is not just a light little, you're depriving your child of lollipops. No, this is actually really serious. And we don't want to freak you out, but we do want to freak you out.
We do want to scare you. It's Halloween.
It's Halloween.
Sugar's not
good. This was Mama Serena's idea. Let's scare them with some sugar talk.
And I want it to be scary, because it is. Like right now, the world is going through epidemic of just unhealthy eating. It's crazy, everything that's being put in the food. And It's scary, and I know it's not easy. It's not easy to keep a lollipop away from my 2-year-old. It's Halloween. There's candy everywhere. They're gonna have some candy tonight on Halloween. But it's important for us to understand how bad it is and to minimize it as much as possible.
Okay. And now give them the other Halloween one that we did last year, I think, the Halloween episode.
Yes, last year, episode 49, healthier Halloween alternatives. That's a good one to listen to right after this one.
Yeah. Okay.
That will
Give
be in
you
the show
some
notes.
ideas, some other ideas of what to do with all the sugar that's going to come into your house tonight.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that it's addictive. We know why it's how it's working in the body, that it's addictive. Now let's look at some of the problems. Why do we not want to be eating this substance? Even given that we know it's addictive, but what's it doing to our bodies? We've talked about those sudden spikes in energy and mood and the sudden drops in energy and mood. In the mood department, you might experience your child being really irritable, being grouchy, pouting, whining, defiant. They may show signs of building up anxiety and even depression. And all of that can be from the sugar high and drop, right? Like it really, really can affect us. And because we've got those extra dopamine receptors, we need more and more and more to keep us kind of leveled out. And it's just this cycle that is a catch-22, and it's, going to get nothing but worse if we let it go. So if your child is showing high signs of irritability, grouchiness, defiance, pouting, whining, one of the things I first want you to do is look at their daily diet. Where might sugar be hiding if you don't think they're getting much? And we will talk in a few minutes about how to look for sugar in your foods. Okay. Of course, obesity is a huge and growing problem, and childhood obesity. It's so sad. And what's happening there? I just want to let you know again, a little bit of the brain science of what's happening. We have a chemical in our brains, in our bodies called leptin. Leptin is the appetite advisor. It lets us know when to stop eating. When we eat, the leptin rises and our appetite diminishes. When we get too much fructose in particular, so a refined sugar, when we get too much fructose, the leptin becomes resistant. We get leptin resistance. So we don't know when we're full. So you might be facing a child who is hungry all the time, or just wanting more and more food or more and more sweets all the time. Leads to obesity. Okay. Other digestive issues, obviously. And some of that is because of the brain-gut connection.
Yeah,
that's what's happening here.
They say your gut is your second brain.
Exactly. As we know, long time sugar consumption, overconsumption, which is so easy in our society, can lead to heart disease, obviously diabetes, and liver disease, fatty liver disease, it's called. And that can cause all kinds of other problems. So that's, there's some physiological problems. There's some mood problems.
The ADHD, you can.
Yeah, sure. So some studies have been showing, and some doctors who are aware of the brain and gut connection with the irritability, the anxiety, all those things, when people come to them with a child who is showing signs of hyperactivity, they're cutting out the sugars first, and sometimes finding that those children actually do not need the ADHD medication. It was actually this whole sugar mess that's going on in their bodies. So really, 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 this is so important. Other mental health issues. We have another part of our brain, the hippocampus. This also signals that we're feeling full, and it's the memory center of our brain. It gets disturbed. So we lose short-term memory. We lose our ability to focus, our concentration. So we can lose academic performance can drop. Overindulgence of sugar can impair our decision-making abilities, our ability to follow directions, to follow rules. Think about children sitting in a classroom. This is not going to be good. Now, our brain does need glucose to work properly, but in a minute, we're going to look at where we can find glucose more naturally. So how do we interrupt the overeating of sugar in our lives, in our children's lives? Number one, role modeling. Like always, it's number one. To change any behaviors in our children, we need to look at ourselves. Number two is right up there. I want you to practice and get into the practice, if you don't do it already, of reading labels of the foods you regularly buy to feed your children. Serena, where do you know that sugar exists in foods that might be surprising? We know ice cream and we know candy and we know, chocolate bars and all those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to a lot about the gut health, and one recent one spoke about sugar and where it's hidden in granola bars, and that some granola bars have more sugars than candies that are on the candy shelves, which is pretty insane because you might think that you're giving your kid something nutritious by handing them a granola bar, and it's really a sugar bar.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I hadn't read that sometimes it's more than some candy, and that's tragic. And I'm sorry, you guys, but what's happening here is that the big food industry is going for the dollar.
Yeah.
They're not concerned with your health and your children's health and well-being throughout their life. What they're concerned about is their companies making money. This is a problem with consumerism culture, and we are paying for it. So I want to point out, obviously, soda, what we call in Canada pop, you call soda. Obviously, that's a rough one. I was a bit surprised when I learned that vitamin waters often have sugar in them, right? I don't drink them, but I'm like, really? They call it a vitamin water? That is consumer culture right there.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, overconsumption of sugar stops our bodies from being able to absorb vitamins and minerals that we need for ongoing health. Okay. It's craziness. Gatorade, obviously full of sugar. There are like those kinds of drinks, sports drinks. You can make it. Look up DIY Gatorades or sports drinks. You can make them yourself. Okay. What else? Breakfast cereals. Please don't start your child's day with sugary breakfast cereals. You're just setting them up for the spike and crash throughout their day. I know for myself, if I have something sweet in the morning, I kind of have a craving of something sweet for the rest of the day.
Yes, me too.
If I start with savory, which I almost always do, I don't have that.
And you feel more balanced. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Another place where it's hidden is yogurt.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, you do not need sweetened yogurt. Put some fruit in there.
And a drizzle of
Put
honey.
a little, if you're in Canada, we like a little maple syrup. I know you can't all get maple syrup, but that's my favorite sweetener. Yeah. Please read the labels on your yogurt. that you're buying for your children. Okay, juice is another one. Your apple juice with breakfast in the morning. Cut up an apple and give it to them. So much better.
Or put it in the juicer.
Or put an apple in the juicer. Yeah.
Fresh apple juice.
If you're buying juice, read the label. If there's any sugars added, you don't need that juice. Get some juice that is pure water and whatever fruit it is, period. I want to just quickly tell you that there are over 200 names for sugar on labels. So you're going to need to educate yourself. But the main ones will say sugar, glucose, fructose, lactose, maltose, dextrose, starch. That one got me. I was like, ooh. But there are so many ways that they can hide sugar in our food. And they do it because we get addicted to that food and we keep buying it. It's all about the money grab. I'm sorry.
And when you're looking at them, I want you to notice, because if you watch Fed Up, like I told you, next to the sugars, they won't even tell you the daily percentage because it's just way past that. Next to sugars,
yes.
It does not show you the daily percentage.
Yes. And also, for those of you who don't know, when you're reading labels, the things that are written from the beginning of the list to the end, they have to put the highest number of what's in there. If sugar is the first, you know that that's the top ingredient in whatever you're eating. If you're eating a granola bar, oats might be first and sugar might be second. No. It needs to be way down at the bottom of the list.
Yes,
or hopefully, yeah. Okay. How can we naturally find this dopamine that we need and the sugars, the full sugars that we need? Avoiding processed sugar is number one, but also eating foods that are going to help you feel that activate that dopamine rush for us and not in a bad way. So whole grains are complex carbohydrates and they release glucose slowly. They are a great brain food. So we get glucose just slowly dripping into our bloodstream and our brain feeds on that. So I'm talking brown rice, whole grain breads or crackers, any whole grains that you can add to your diet, not the refined white breads and white noodles and all those refined grains. They're going to give you more of a sugar spike because that's what starch does. The high level starches turn to sugar. Okay. Apples, oranges, bananas, watermelon, those kinds of fruits, any fruits really have a lot of natural sugar in them. And wherever possible, like I said, the real food, not the bought juice. Yeah. Avocados were listed on this one list. Green leafy vegetables are really good sources of a whole kind of sugar that will give us that dopamine that we need. And then last, I just wanted to point out to a few ways that we can actually naturally activate that dopamine that we're craving. And these are the things that are going to help you to interrupt the overeating of sugar and help you and or your child or children to come off a sugar addiction if you think you're working around that. So activities that we can do to naturally activate dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good pleasure hormone, okay? So hanging out with your favorite people can activate dopamine. Your parents, if you're feeling a loving connection. Your grandparents, your friends. These are for your children, right? Having loving, connected times. That activates dopamine. Activities that can help you relax or help your child relax. Having a bath, reading a storybook, having some quiet time. learning to meditate, doing some yoga, getting a massage, sitting on the couch and massaging the bottom of your child's feet. That's a beautiful, relaxing interaction, and that can release dopamine. Going for walks in nature, that's my number one. And then also activities. So those are helping you feel relaxed. And then others that kind of pick you up and make you feel happy, because that's dopamine pleasure too, right? So playing your favorite games, running and playing tag, playing with a pet, or on the calming side, just patting a pet that's sleeping on your lap, or snuggling with your parent, all those kinds of things that make you feel happy. Those can replace that dopamine need that we might have been getting from sugar without knowing it. There we go.
Wow, that was a lot. But we hope that you are walking away from this episode a little more educated. And like I like to say, you know better, you do better. So if you feel like your kid has been tainted, just throw out the garbage and don't bring it into your house. And that's what I say. I gave you permission. Maybe you won't even enjoy your sweets tonight, or you're scared to give them to your kids. I give you permission to throw them out.
I don't want them to throw out all their kids' Halloween candy though, without listening to the other last year's episode though.
Yes, listen.
Because they might be able, you parent might. I don't want you to say, "Oh, the nurturing parent, they told us we could throw out your candy."
No.
Or you could blame us. That's okay.
Yeah, make us the bad guy. That's fine, as long as you're not the bad guy and you don't want them to get mad at you. But I do give you permission to throw some of the candy in the garbage, and I don't want you to feel bad about it, because it's not doing anybody any good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's garbage.
It really is, actually. Yeah. And we're not saying you can never have sugar in your life. No. Of course, you're going to go to birthday parties. They're going to have sweets. You're going to have sweets. It's okay. Just don't make it a daily intake in your child's life or yours.
My kids are definitely going to have some candy tonight. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I am aware, and I'm not going to keep the candy in my house, and I don't want it ruining their little bodies. I want them to grow up and be healthy and know how to make healthy decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we're not addicted to sugar, we can choose. Oh, maybe I'll have this ice cream tonight because I just feel like ice cream. That'd be fun. Mm-hmm. Rather than, I need ice cream. I need ice cream. I need ice cream. I need ice cream. You know, there's a difference. That's the difference between somebody who can drink and somebody who has to finish the bottle.
Yes.
It's an addiction. I'm sorry if this was a wake-up call. I'm glad you're now on the page. We love you. Thank you for listening. This was long and important. We do love you. Have fun tonight.
All right. So I hope that was okay for you guys. Like I said, my kids are going to enjoy their candy tonight, but then it's going to go in the garbage, or whoever wants to take it can take it. My coworkers can have it, but it's not staying in the house. And anytime I do find a piece of garbage, because it is garbage, anytime I do find a piece of candy just lying around the house, I'm more than happy to throw it out because it's really garbage. I never spend my money on candy, so I don't feel like I'm wasting my money. And when I can, I do put it in a bag, like if we go to a birthday party, and I'll bring it to my coworkers. But make sure you listen to last year's Halloween episode. And something else I saw on Instagram that was cool was the switch or something, where you put your candies in whatever you carry it in, you leave it out front, you close the door, and then the switch comes and she'll take the candy and leave a little toy. So that's a good idea, instead of just making it disappear and then your kids feel like you lied to them or you're doing something behind their back. That was a cool idea that I saw. All right, to dive into my gems, number 1
is read the labels. It's in the yogurts, it's in the granola bars, and I do see a lot of kids, and we might confuse it for a growth spurt or something when they're just hungry all the time, and you're like, you just had a snack, you just had a bag of chips, you just had a yogurt, and it's really just filled with sugar, and that's killing the receptors that let those little bodies know that they're full. Number 2 is just keep it out of the house. Keep the junk out of the house. That's the easiest way to prevent your kids from eating it. So make sure you read the labels before you bring it into your home. Like Amma said, what's at the top or like those first ingredients, that's most of what's in that food. So if one of those sugar or those code words for sugars is at the top, that means it has a lot of sugar in it. And number 3, we're not saying that you can't have it. We just don't want it to be an addiction. Like you having to have that sugar, having to have those treats, like my daughter having to have that lollipop. And for a while they were drinking those Danimal yogurts because Andrea loved Sky from Paw Patrol. So we had to get the Paw Patrol ones every time, but it was her addiction to Sky and it was her addiction to the sugar that's in this stuff. So we're not saying don't enjoy it, but like Amma said, those savory foods have to be introduced to their taste buds at least 13 times before they can get acclimated to it. Sweets, they just need one taste and they're hooked. And the great example that she shared, it's like the difference between an alcoholic having to finish the bottle. And I'm sorry if it might have sounded like I was a drug addict. I was not a drug addict. I lived with a drug addict. So when I say I could relate to it, it's because I lived with somebody and I can see how those behaviors correlated. All right. So thank you very much, parents, for listening. Sorry if we scared you, but it's the scary truth. We love you. We want your babies to grow up and be healthy and make healthy decisions as well. And we hope that you learned something from this too. Thank you and have a safe, happy Halloween. Bye-bye.
I want to sing with you. I want to dance with you. I want to laugh with you. Oh, how I love to be with you. I do. I do. Such a short time we've been together. Seems like a lifetime.